Well, good afternoon to you all, friends. I was looking at the schedule of the programs this morning, and I find that a lot of ground has been covered on the digital issues. So we have had a session on digital identity. We have had a session probably on digital payments. So all these horizontal infrastructure issues, horizontal digital infrastructure issues have been covered. Now what I intend to speak in the next 10 minutes is about the application of these digital public goods which India has created, which are horizontal in nature. And by horizontal, I mean that they can be plugged into any transaction. So whether it is Aadhaar can be plugged into any transaction, which is whether it is buying of a mobile SIM or getting ration from a ration shop or doing authentication for any other purpose. And as you know, we have done about 80 billion authentications in the last 10 years or so. And from payment, which can again be required in any kind of transactions, what is now happening is that these horizontal digital public goods are being used for various specific domains. And one such domain is health. And I'll like to just speak briefly about the digital health mission, the Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, which was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister on 27th of September last year, 2021. And broadly, what it intends to do is to use technology, leverage technology for delivering an affordable, quality, and accessible healthcare. So how we can use technology, that's the broad idea. During this pandemic period of COVID, we have started using technology. So for example, we were not allowed to go out of our homes and we were using WhatsApp to consult our doctors. We are using WhatsApp messages to get the drugs, etc., etc. So in a way, the only positive aspect of COVID has been that we have started getting more and more digital, whether it's a payment space or whether it's health or whether it's other things. So now what we have done is essentially we have created basic public goods, basic building blocks, and created an architecture which will ensure that the health services delivery is technology is leveraged for delivering health services, and also done in a way which is interoperable, which is scalable, and which is really frugal in that sense of the term, and which is based on open standards so that everybody can participate. So the whole idea is to create, like other digital public goods which this country has created, whose basic architectural principle has been openness, interoperability, scalability, frugality, and open standards, open APIs, open source, whatever, all those things. That is actually the architectural principle of digital public goods which we are creating. We have a number of building blocks. One is called the Ayushman Bharat Health Account, which is like a bank account for every person in this country where his or her health accounts can be stored or at least can be linked with that number so that he or she can have a longitudinal health accounts so that when he or she goes to a doctor, he is able to share these longitudinal health accounts. So that's one part which we are doing. Second part is essentially because it's very important that the health records are not shared or not seen by anybody else except the patient, except for his permission. So therefore, we have created a consent artifact, consent mechanism whereby the consent of the person is taken, explicit consent, before he or she shares her data with any doctor or any other service provider. So that's another very, very important piece which takes care of the privacy. The third architectural principle is the federated architecture of storing of this data. So it's not as if the data is being stored at a central place where anybody can access. The data remains wherever it is. It's only the links of that data is stored in the consent manager, which essentially we can visualize that data as and when the person gives a consent in a real time. Fortunately, India has created a digital consent artifact which is being heavily used in order to ensure that it is that person who has given the consent, that consent is verifiable and non-repudiable. That's the other important concept. Then we are building certain digital public registries, which is basically registry of drugs, registry of health professionals, registry of health facilities. So these registries will basically provide an authentic and verified, entities as to which are the verified. For example, we have the problem of quacks, and therefore, all these guys go and cause incalculable damage to the people. That will not happen because this registry will be authenticated by the concerned medical councils, whether it is a doctor's medical council or the Ayurvedic People's Medical Council. So that's another piece. So you have the consent manager, you have the health account number, you have the federated data structure, you have digital public, the registries. These are some of the things which we have constructed, and we have taken care of this fact that the entire architecture is open. So essentially, we are not into building what is called the front-end end-user applications, because we believe that the best people who can do this application are the people who are the innovators, who are the private sector people. So we are just building a framework. It's just a framework where you can plug your applications. It's a similar type of thing which we had created. For example, we created CoWIN. And in the CoWIN, we had prescribed the open API since the very beginning. And therefore, today we have 150 applications which are connecting with CoWIN. And CoWIN has actually a data of 2.1 billion vaccinations, and everybody can see. I'm sure many of you must have used CoWIN for vaccination purposes. It can remind. And we are repurposing CoWIN to essentially use it for universal immunization for children. We are repurposing CoWIN for blood donation. And finally, we are repurposing it for organ donation system also. So that's the broad part on that. And we are ensuring that all the other applications are able to do. Another part which we are doing is very important, is similar to UPI, we have created what is called UHI, the Unified Health Interface. What does it entail? It entails, similar to UPI, when you can transfer money from peer to peer, from a bank account to a person, from a person to a bank account, stuff like that. Similarly, using UHI, you can do a search, you can do a booking, and you can avail these services using a completely interoperable architecture. Just one example, I was telecom regulator before I came to this sort of post, and there, if there was no interoperability, then the Airtel fellow would have talked only to Airtel customers. Yeah? This interoperability, or what is called interconnection in the telecom world, is what makes the telecom so ubiquitous, and it reduces the cost of entry, and it does many good things. Similar to that, if I have a video consultation application X, and the doctor has another video consultation application Y, then X should be able to talk to Y. Otherwise, what will happen? If the doctor and patient has to have the same application, then I will have to have multiple applications on my mobile. Doctor may also have to have multiple applications, but probably he can have one application and say, okay, download this application, then talk to me. Now, this will all go away. This is such a great value, which actually interoperability is an extremely important concept, and we have completely internalized it in all our digital public goods. I'll stop here. Probably I've already crossed the 10 minutes mark. Thank you so much.